Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. This is our regular MLB pitching preview show that we do with Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. Right now we're looking at the card for Saturday, June 6th. Joe Duffy, how's everything going at OffshoreInsiders.com?
Fantastic, especially in baseball. We've been sizzling hot and another great year at OffshoreInsiders.com.
All right, profitable overall in baseball this year at your site?
We have, and I know a lot of people just want to know what we've done lately. I think it's 10 out of the last 14 days we've had winning days in Major League Baseball as we file this report.
All right, that sounds great. Well, Saturday, June 6th, a lot of the usual suspects that I like to ask you about in these calls. Clayton Kershaw, Felix Hernandez, Matt Garza, John Danks. First, let's start with Kershaw. At home against St. Louis. You know, the Dodgers have now won 4 out of his last 5 starts. Is he still a good fade or not? He's had 2 straight excellent starts. Does that continue, or does he revert back to one of those, 3 or 4 run starts that we saw so many of earlier in the year from him?
I must admit I did fade him the last game, but at this point still, he's got a 3.73 ERA. We know he's a stud pitcher, but value is what it's about in Major League Baseball, and until Clayton Kershaw just really, truly starts pitching like Clayton Kershaw, which is one of the most dominant pitchers in baseball, you're not going to get very good value on him. So right. I would say either you stay away from it or you got to look at the further metrics and see if he's still worth fading.
Sure, and we'll see what the line is for that one. Probably it's going to be in the stratosphere again. Then Felix Hernandez got shelled for the first time this year. Last start at home against the Yankees. Now he's going to be at home against Tampa Bay. And Alex Colomé on the other side, not bad, but often vulnerable. What do you think? Does Felix Hernandez bounce back in a big way?
Most likely. Felix Hernandez is one of the top pitchers in Major League Baseball. In part, this guy doesn't go in a whole lot of slumps. He's got a long history of bouncing back, so I wouldn't worry too much about the fact that he's coming off a very rare bad outing.
And then one guy who had a rare good start, John Danks, off a complete game shutout. With John Danks, you know, I can see 1 or 2 innings of shutout ball from him, but 9 innings, unbelievable. He's probably going to get hit here, though, against Detroit, right?
Perhaps, but I think a little bit different than when we talked about Felix Hernandez. Danks is at least a veteran, and the reason he's been around a while, it's not like he doesn't have an ability to bounce back and prove that he's a major league quality pitcher. He was somebody who I look for him to maybe pitch more towards his level. He's not necessarily a very good pitcher, but he's not as abysmal as he had looked. And the fact that he's coming off a pretty good outing, I think, if anything, he's probably one of those guys you'd put a check mark next to being pretty good value. Again, is he a very good pitcher? No. But is he as awful as he had looked? No. So the fact that he's at least turning it around a little bit, I think, if anything, he's going to be of some good value the next couple starts.
Really? My sense is he might get crushed here. And then David Price on the other side, not really lights out by any means this year. Usually gives up, 3 runs or so, but Detroit is 9-2 in his 11 starts. I'm thinking that Price and Detroit on the run line might have great value. You disagree, though?
Well, they're a good offense. I was speaking more so as far as just general thoughts on Danks, not necessarily as it applies here, but you're right. He's going against a pretty good pitcher, one of the best pitchers in baseball, and a guy who's also capable of pitching a little bit better than he has, and certainly going up against a better offense. So in this situation, you may be right that maybe taking a chance and laying the 1.5 on the run line would be of good value. But I expect, maybe if anything, the under here. I do think that Danks, because he's probably slightly undervalued, maybe that might be the way to go. Do I think it's a great position for him to get a win? Probably not, but I do expect him to pitch better.
All right, and then Matt Garza. I've been on record as not being a believer in Matt Garza from day one this year. Now he's going to be on the road at Minnesota. Minnesota's going to be having a spot starter, J.R. Graham. He's one of these guys who was a starter when he came up in the minors. Then he went to the bullpen, and when those guys get a spot start in the majors, they're usually people that I'm looking to bet on. I'm not exactly sure what my take on J.R. Graham is going to be here specifically, but Matt Garza, like to fade him. Minnesota, as we know, the most profitable team in baseball to date. Is this a spot where Minnesota might have some good value?
Perhaps. I would agree with you. I do think when you have those spot starters, they get a little bit of an adrenaline advantage. I know that Garza had gotten really slapped around, allowed 19 earned runs and 23 hits over his previous 3 starts, but did, finally pitch fairly well, but not necessarily well enough to think that he's completely turned it around. Again, Garza probably not as bad as he's looked, in the fact that he is coming off a pretty decent outing. You're going to get a pretty high total, so really maybe the under here, because I don't think that Garza is as awful as his overall numbers, and the fact he started to turn it around maybe another good outing here.
All right, well, I'm in general pretty down on Garza, and I think I still am. And then Madison Bumgarner at Philly, you know, still a very reliable, excellent starter. Last 2 starts have been just average, the 6 innings, 3 earned run types. He gave up a home run in each. Now he's going to be on the road at Philly, an offense that can, you know, easily be shut down. Do you think this might be one of those 8 innings, 1 earned run starts from a Bumgarner, you know, sort of a much better start than we've seen him very recently?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are really overdoing the people who overanalyze the so-called advanced numbers where Madison Bumgarner, his strikeout ratio is down, but then again, his walk ratio is much better. And I've always said that strikeouts are a little bit overrated, and the fact that he's not walking hitters is very good. As we know, Gonzalez, just a typical Phillies pitcher, where outside of Hamels and you know, the journeyman who has pitched well, Phillies pitching staff is just absolutely. Aaron Harang is the other pitcher who's pitched well. The rest of their pitching staff kind of very much patchwork that is, and Gonzalez is clearly one of these guys that the only reason he's pitching at the major league level is because he's wearing a Philly uniform. So laying the 1.5 on the road is pretty tempting.
All right, some interesting starts this Saturday. We'll see how it all shakes out. That's all I wanted to get from you. Make sure we touched on. What else would you like to bring to our attention, Joe?
Well, one of the great splits pitchers for sure, Despaigne for San Diego. He's been substantially better at home in his career, 2.74 ERA at home, but yet on the road, 5.22. And when someone's got that compelling of a split, you got to, again, if anything, you lean towards going with him at home, but against him on the road. And Adam Warren for the Yankees is a guy who's probably deserved a better fate. He's over his last 4 starts. He actually has 3 losses, but then again, he's got a 2.7 ERA and holding teams to only a 202 batting average. You usually find that run support's more of an aberrational thing, but the fact that he's pitched well, figure either an under or you look for him to finally get some run support. So I think Adam Warren is one of those underrated pitchers at this point, undervalued pitchers.
Okay, interesting thoughts. Joe Duffy from OffshoreInsiders.com. Thanks.